Yesterday evening, police issued 2 new pictures of Sarah Everard. In one, she was wearing the coat she had on when she disappeared. She vanished after she left a friend's house in Clapham last Wednesday. She was walking home alone to Brixton. She was captured on a camera at about 9:30, the last confirmed sighting. And during yesterday evening, as the police teams continued their work in London, officers were in Kent making arrests.
The disappearance of a young woman in the UK ignited a firestorm on Twitter when the Not All Men hashtag began trending after women started sharing their own stories in solidarity with the missing girl. To further understand this phenomenon, we can look at an article from My London covering the story. Sarah Everard. Women despair that hashtag Not All Men has been trending on Twitter. Quote, "Do you see the problem?" And this is her. Women across the country are in despair that hashtag Not All Men is trending on Twitter, despite their efforts to put focus on the links that they must go to when trying to stay safe in public. Social media has exploded with heartfelt sympathies for Sarah's family and friends, with thousands of women opening up a conversation about the reality of crime and safety for women in public. But the conversation was met with backlash from a minority of people, and hashtag Not All Men began trending from people who want to draw the focus back to the fact that not all men would commit crimes against women. But this again was met with fury. And I'm just going to read a few tweets listed in the article here. This one from Emma Kennedy. When hashtag Not All Men is trending higher than hashtag Sarah Everard, do you see the problem? This from Emma Nation. How dare hashtag Not All Men be trending the day where, in the news, it appears that Sarah Everard has lost her life. How dare men always make it about them when women experience collective pain? Of course it's not all men, but why is that your first thought about a victim of crime? And this one from a person named Leah. Hashtag Not All Men, but every single man who has sexually harassed, attacked women, belittled women, bullied women, joined in on sexist banter, indulged in violent trolling online, or men who don't challenge those that do these things. Hashtag Too Many Men.
The fact Not All Men is trending higher than any other hashtag that relates to this really preventable tragedy shows you that men are still shirking their responsibility in the fact that women are scared, not knowing which routes to take, and you're always doing these calculations in our heads about who do we text when we get home, what route we'll take, will we take public transport, will we walk, can we run at this time, all of these decisions that seem so small, but they are everyday reminders of the patriarchal systems that we live in.
I really wish I didn't know Sarah Everard's name, but here we have another woman murdered and tossed away in the countryside like rubbish. And at the same time her name was trending on Twitter, so was Not All Men. Not all fucking men. All women though. There's not a woman out there without a story of sexual harassment, abuse, domestic violence, rape at the hands of a man. And the best you can do is sit there and get defensive and say, oh, it wasn't me. Probably your mate though, or your family members. They walk amongst us because they sure as fuck aren't in prison. In fact, the conviction stats are so low, it might as well be legal to rape and abuse women. Women aren't free.
But it has prompted a big debate online and in the media about, how safe women are on Britain's streets. And a number of people have been taking part in debates online about men being a risk to women. The hashtag Not All Men was trending on social media as men, and indeed many women, including myself, pointing out that it's not all men who are a risk to women. It's some men who are a risk to women and indeed to men.
So one thing that makes this firestorm happening on social media even more interesting is when you begin looking into the details of the actual story and what they reveal. So this is an article from NPR titled Disappearance of London Woman Walking Home Alone Sparks Grief and Anger Across the UK. And this is covered in a much more neutral less biased way than some of the other articles that I've been reading. So it starts in the first paragraph. 1 week after 33-year-old Sarah Everard disappeared while walking home alone at night from a friend's house in South London, police say they have discovered what appear to be human remains and have arrested an officer on suspicion of murder. So this is completely fascinating, okay? Because just within this first paragraph, we learn some details that totally contradict the narrative that's already being spun on Twitter and the outrage machine, people screaming at each other about everything, okay? Because it says right here, they appear to be human remains, but as of this video, as of this recording, we do not know whose remains they are. These remains have not been identified. It may or may not be Sarah's. We don't know that she's dead yet, okay? In fact, there is no hard evidence that she was captured or abducted. They suspect that's what happened, but she could have also run away. There's no video footage. There's no concrete evidence that she was. It's just the assumption right now. She's missing, but we don't know for sure that she's dead, and we don't know for sure that she was abducted. Furthermore, the officer that was arrested on suspicion of murder, he hasn't been charged with anything. He's been arrested. They have a suspect. Okay. I thought, isn't the premise of the courts? Don't we operate on the assumption of innocence before guilt? I mean, I guess in the public social justice mob, and in the kangaroo court of public opinion, guilty is charged, right? We have a suspect. He's a man. He must have done it, and he must have killed her, even though we have we don't even have proof that she's dead yet. Okay, but this is so interesting to see how this has gotten spun out of control, even though the details of the story don't match the narrative of what people are arguing about on Twitter. And it gets even more interesting when you read, you continue to go down the article. On Tuesday, authorities arrested an unnamed Metropolitan Police officer in his 40s on suspicion of kidnapping. They also arrested a woman in her 30s at the same Kent address as the officer on suspicion of assisting an offender. So this is interesting, right? Because this entire story has been framed as male violence against women and how unsafe women are in our society with males around. But that fails to take into consideration this important component that a woman was also arrested in relation to this case. And she's just as, she hasn't been charged either. She's another suspect. How come nobody's bringing that up, right? That's a fascinating addition to the story. That's an important component that you can't just ignore, right? We have two suspects. We have a man and a woman, but the narrative here is that men are the ones violent towards women, even though, as we said before, we have no hard evidence that Sarah was actually captured or kidnapped. Okay, she's missing. We have no evidence that she's dead. We've found remains, but we haven't verified that it's her remains. Okay, we have a man in custody, a suspect, but he hasn't been charged with anything, and he hasn't been proven guilty. And we also have a female in custody. So when you look at the actual details of the story, they don't match or conform to this narrative, this outrage machine happening all over social media and especially Twitter at all. But people have just taken this spin on the story and run with it, and that is exactly what this entire debacle is about.
Let's play a game. Imagine we're at a party and I hand you a gun. You open the gun and there's space for 6 bullets. I take 1 bullet and I put it in a space. Shut it, spin it, hand it to you, and say play Russian roulette. I want you to hold that gun up to your head and click the trigger, and you just better hope a bullet doesn't go through your skull. Are you gonna do it? Most people's answer will be a flat out no. A simple, why should I risk my life just for the sake of a game? Now let's discuss that in the not all men narrative that men like to be pushing onto feminists these days. 1 in 6 women are victims of sexual assault, of reported cases. So whilst not all men are bad, there's always going to be that one man that is bad. So women need to be wary of all men in order to protect themselves. Not all the bullet casings in that gun are filled, but one of them is. And you don't want to take that risk, so why should we?
We have a 1 in 11 million chance of getting killed by a shark. 1 in 11 million. So then why are we scared of sharks? Not all sharks. I mean, there's no reason to be scared of sharks if it's 1 in 11 million. There's a really low chance of being killed by a shark. But we're still scared of it. We're still scared when we go into the ocean that a shark's going to come and bite our legs off, right? But it's 1 in 11 million. You know why we're scared? Because they're dangerous. You know, we take that caution because there is a chance that they could kill us, right? So tell me why it's so stupid when girls say they're scared of men when there's a 1 in 6 chance that you will get raped or sexually assaulted in your lifetime as a woman by a man. 1 in 6 women. I don't know, it sounds like a good analogy to me. Ha! Not all sharks, though.
It may or may not surprise you that, in relation to the story, the outrage and overreaction hasn't just been limited to Twitter. A major UK Green Party politician, Baroness Jones, is now attempting to pass legislation that will create a 6 p.m. curfew for all men in the United Kingdom.
And in the week that the woman Sarah Everard was abducted and we suppose killed because remains have been found in a woodland in Kent, I would argue that at the next opportunity for any bill that's appropriate, I might actually put in an amendment to create a curfew for men on the streets after 6 p.m, which I feel would make women a lot safer, and discrimination of all kinds would be lessened.
Wait, how would discrimination be lessened by forcing roughly half the population of the country into their homes by legal mandate? Do you even know what the word discrimination means? And by the way, I want to remind the viewer that no man has officially been charged or convicted with Sarah's disappearance or death, partly because we don't know if she was abducted and we haven't confirmed her death. But even if we had, does the kidnapping and murder of a single woman on a British street merit a curfew for every single man in England? This kind of bigoted reactionary politics has been normalized and is par for the course here in the United States. But I expected more from you, Great Britain. For shame.
So I agree with the Met Commissioner on this. The incident that's happened, which is absolutely awful, and my heart goes out to Sarah's family and friends, is exceptionally rare. But I would say that on the whole, our streets, are safe. We do have low rates of crime, but we are addressing this problem as well.
And lastly, in the House of Lords, Baroness Jenny Jones says she might suggest a curfew for men after 6 p.m. Would you support that, Minister?
So I won't support any curfew that would curtail freedom of women or men, and it doesn't really get to the heart of the problem. And we also need to be careful we don't get into a blame game against men. The majority of men are not predators, in fact, and we need to keep reinforcing that, not taking away from the endless stories that women have shared. We need to get to the heart of the problem rather than masking it.
Now, I know what you're thinking. There's no way that this story could get more stupid, more trite, and more degenerate than it already is. And that is where I have to unfortunately inform you that you couldn't be more wrong, my friend. Because, in fact, the rabbit hole goes even deeper. If you go on Twitter and type in #NotAllMen and look through the posts, you can scroll infinitely down into the abyss, into oblivion. I've been looking at these tweets. I've been looking through tweets for about 3 hours now, and every single tweet is condemning the #NotAllMen. It's against it, right? So let's just look at a few. From Alexandra. We know it's not all men who are unsafe, but it's all women who feel unsafe. Okay? This one from Rosie. My God, that hashtag not all men is trending. When people are sharing their sometimes painful lived experiences, it adds another level of exhaustion to have to constantly reassure the listener that they don't mean all. It's reassurance at the expense of our own pain. This from San Mikel. I tend to just talk shit on here, but seeing the hashtag not all men rear its head around the Sarah Everard story is pathetic. Everyone knows it's not all of us, but it pretty much always is one of us. Now's not the time to be looking for praise for not abducting someone. Fucking weirdos. And it just goes on and on and on. Every single tweet that includes this hashtag is condemning the hashtag. Every single tweet that includes the not all men is being used against it, right? It's being used in outrage that the hashtag is so popular, that it's trending. People are against the fact that it's trending. But the reason that the hashtag is trending is because people are tweeting the hashtag, complaining that the hashtag is trending. I am not making this up. I have not seen a single person using hashtag not all men unironically. Every single person using it is using it to complain that it's trending, but also causing it to be trending. So people are posting this hashtag, complaining that hashtag not all men is trending higher than hashtag Sarah Everard, while being responsible for the fact that the hashtag not all men is trending more than hashtag Sarah Everard. I'm not making this up. This is the ultimate in social justice irony. This is the snake infinitely eating its own tail forever of the social media outrage engine, right? All of this rage, all of this anger, all of this hatred that hashtag not all men is trending on Twitter and on social media, despite the fact that the people making it trend, causing it to be the most popular hashtag right now on Twitter, are the people that are complaining about how popular it is. There's not a single person that I've found that's actually using this unironically. We're being told, not only by online activists, but also politicians and news organizations, that the fact that hashtag not all men is trending on Twitter is proof that we live in a deeply misogynistic, anti-female, and woman-hating society, despite the fact that this entire escapade is based purely on a strawman argument. It should be completely clear now that the only people ever using the not all men hashtag on Twitter were the feminists and social justice activists attempting to condemn its use, which created a snowball effect of more online activists jumping on the bandwagon to condemn its use, which eventually hit a critical mass and created an avalanche of outrage that caused not all men to trend even higher than Sarah Everard. The endless outpouring of fury and disgust on social media was based on the claim that not all men was drawing attention away from the real victims. But ironically, the people drawing attention away from the real victim were the exact same people complaining that attention is being drawn away from the real victims. This is the fundamental flaw with online social justice activism. It is only ever a solution to a problem of its own making. It does nothing to help victims or to create positive social change. It ultimately and inevitably descends into a giant circle jerk of people infinitely feeding off each other's self-righteous rage and smelling one another's farts.
Hi, I specifically studied gender-based trauma and I have 2 relevant degrees from Harvard on this. Let's talk about men who say, not all men. This behavior comes from 3 sources. First, this is a male pick-me behavior. Oh, I understand there are men out there who are acting in abusive ways, but I'm not one of them. I'm one of the good guys. That's a total delusion, by the way. In a patriarchy, everyone has internalized misogyny, sexism, and oppressive ways to treat women. That's why we all gotta unlearn patriarchal ways of behaving. Number 2, the need to control women's voices. Notice how they are tone policing women? Far more than they're mad at those men who are abusing, harassing, and raping women, who are giving rest of the men a bad name. Number 3, male superiority complex. This would relate to the male pick-me behavior. Oh, I understand there will be awful men out there like who will abuse and rape and harass you and oppress you, but I'm not one of them. If you depend on me to protect you from male violence, you'll be good. That instills in women a fear of independence, that the real solution to the male violence is another man. That's not true, by the way.
Personally, I'm a radical feminist, and I have never once heard a woman who has said all men are rapists. So that's just disingenuous to place that ideology onto us. But when we speak up about women's oppression and women's abuse, we obviously know it's not all men. But when 1 in 3 women in their lifetime are either raped or physically abused by a man, it is enough men. That is enough men to make all women afraid. That is enough men that when I'm walking home alone at night, I have to assume it's all men to keep myself safe. But when men like you sit on this app and make our pain and our abuse and our oppression about yourselves, it is helping no one. We know it's not all men, but it's enough men to keep us in a constant state of fear, and that's how oppression works.
Scared of being raped, kidnapped, or murdered, because that shit happens, okay? And then boys are like, but not all men are no shit, Kyle! We obviously know not all men are like that, but it's enough!
This makes sense until you actually look at fucking data. How many men in the world are actually like this? Like, how many men are rapists, sex offenders, and whatever? What percentage of men are actually like this dude? There are nearly 3.9 billion men on this planet, and of those 3.9 billion men, such a small and tiny percentage are actually pieces of shit. According to this data, there were approximately 250,000 rape charges annually across 65 different countries. Not sure how many of those are women raping men, but you know what? To make the numbers in favor for these feminists, I'll assume all 250,000 charges are men. Now, that number, 250,000, that sounds like a lot, right? But look at the 3.9 billion men compared to that. According to these statistics, a whopping 0.0064% of men in the entire world are rapists and pieces of shit who will do stuff like this to a girl. So to categorize all 3.9 billion men on this fucking planet as rapists is so unbelievably stupid and so unbelievably unfair. Literally 0.0064% of men do this shit. That is minuscule. That shit is fucking tiny, yet women want all men dead? Like, fuck off.
And when you don't defend women, they just think that you're a part of the creeps. So if you don't want that to happen, you're gonna have to start calling out dudes for their shitty behavior, because I promise you, Kyle, I promise you that no girl is gonna want a bitch who says not all men. They want somebody who's gonna fucking stand up for them.
Your Honor, I am innocent. I did not rape this woman, but I preach feminism. Take me away. I'm standing up for women. Fucking amazing logic, dude. Dumb pieces of shit. She claims that all men support this, like, small percentage of people for raping girls. Like, no, obviously we don't want that shit to happen. Obviously, we will defend girls when they are actually taken advantage of. But don't categorize all men like this, dude.
But we can change, you can educate as many men as you want. You can have don't rape classes, as they have, I think, outrageously, universities now. You can do all of that. There will still be some bad... Let me finish. There will still be some bad people who do that. We teach people not to steal, and yet people still steal, people still burgle. We teach people not to murder. People still do that. You can, and the idea, have this idea that you can educate as many people as you want. But my brother never needed to be taught not to rape. My husband never needed to be taught not to rape.
But I think he did. I think he was educated. I think he was educated because listen, Julia, the whole point is that we're all educated not to steal and not to do certain things.
And yet people still do it.
But exactly, but those are the bad people. That's why we need to have legislation.
Do you think that sending out a message that somehow intrinsically, unless they're told not to, all men are sort of somehow deep inside, unless they thought they'd get caught, are rapists? Do you think that's a good message to send out to either women or men?
I didn't say that all men are rapists and all men deep down are rapists.
Unless they're educated.
Well, that's the whole point. How do you learn to not put your hand?
So you are saying that unless they're educated not to do it. They would do it.
Yeah,
The vast majority,
as predators.
the vast majority of men, not good men, but the vast majority of men are as disgusted and horrified by violence against women.
But why don't they say that rather
they
than
do.
saying, no, they're not.
Who are
All
the
they're
men
saying
you
is
know, Nimco?
literally, no, I'm talking about even this hashtag all men, or all men is trending above Sarah's name. That is really horrific. The whole point is rather than saying,
men saying we're not all bad people and women saying we know you're not. That's horrific.